who is not described as a citizen under Article 6 of the Constitution of Ghana. So the Article 6 of the 1992 Constitution clearly set out who a citizen is. You must have one parent being Ghanaian or grandparent being Ghanaian, and if you are found in Ghana up to the years of 7 years as a child without parents in Ghana, you are deemed to be a citizen. And I mean, you can also attain citizenship by marriage, naturalization, and all that by registration. So anybody who does not have that is not a citizen of Ghana. So, I mean, we can skew it to the company. So for companies, we say you're a foreign company when more than 40% of equity shareholding is owned by non-Ghanaians. Then we say
40%.
More than 40%. So it means from 41% and above. And the Land Act 2000, Act 1036 has set it out clearly. So Section 1010 says that any company whose shareholding is more than 40% is not so owned by a non-Ghanaian. So if a non-Ghanaian owns more than 40%, it is not a Ghanaian company. Okay. It will be deemed as a foreign company. So that's
so now we know who a foreigner is.
Exactly.
So if such a person owns more than 40% of shares in a particular company, then that company is deemed as
a foreign company, straight out.
Nadia, do you want to add something to it? Are you a foreigner?
No. No, but I think it's really interesting because Ghana right now, we're going through a lot of transitions, especially when it comes to citizenship and what defines us as Ghanaians, especially as soon as we opened up our doors with the year of return and, you know, everybody should come back home. So even AHASPRA, the diaspora organization I'm working with, we've been working with the Office of the President, the Diaspora Affairs Office, as well as IOM and organizations like that in defining what a new Ghanaian is, so to speak. Because as you mentioned, like somebody's grandfather or great, like, but now it's even going as far back as if you can show that there's a lineage back into Africa, then that's it. So that's something we are now, even as a nation. Yeah, of course. So in the meantime, we're other than it being the naturalization of your parents or your family lineage, it's also, have you been in Ghana, contributed to the economy for like 9 years?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you can get a Ghanaian passport from there.
Save that the law is the law, like I mentioned. So till we get there, it's just defined in our constitution. But I believe our doors are open, and that we, as much as we want to attract foreigners, we are doing so much. We are saying they should come home, they should come to Ghana. December, Ghana is booming, and we are all having fun and all that. But then the law is the law. That is one thing about Ghana, such that anytime it comes to you taking up a position or taking a step or doing an act, that is when you'll be told where exactly you'll be. Other than that, for attraction of investors here and there, I think our doors are open. Yeah, our doors are open.
But people are getting...
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And
African Americans are now
and people
Ghanaian
have been
citizens.
in Ghana for that long, and now they naturalize and they become Ghanaians.
So in my view, from where I sit, what is a foreigner is getting blurred.
Exactly. So gradually we are getting there. We will just have to legislate.
Changing anything in the constitution is going to be a whole lot of work.
I know.
So I think what we once traditionally knew as what a Ghanaian is, I think maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be completely different. You'll see a spectrum of Ghanaians. Yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
I like where Nadia is coming from.
I like the idea because you want more investors and they can trace their roots to Ghana. So why don't we? Maybe the constitution should be re-looked at. We shouldn't just be looking at the powers of the executive. We should be looking at all these.
You know what we say? Supremacy of the constitution.
Of course.
Anita, you don't want to go there until we get there.
Until we get there, I understand. So now let's let's say, okay, let me ask this question before I get here. Can a Ghanaian be deemed to be owning a foreign business? Is it possible? Can a Ghanaian own a foreign business?
So just as I defined from the Land Act, so if you look at the definition under the Section 1010, it's saying any business whose equity shareholding or owned by a non-Ghanaian up to the tune of more than 40%. More than 40%. So a Ghanaian can be part of that company, okay. All right? Mm-hmm. You can have like 55% of shares, but it is still a foreign company.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, it is. It is still a foreign company. Yeah.
All right. So Nadia, tell me, educate us a bit about foreign companies when they are coming in. What they should look out for, some of the legal compliances you think they should look out for?
I think with legal compliances, I'm going to leave it to you. That's fine. I'll definitely leave that to you. But just from our experience with the Nigerian entities that have been coming in, and you know, in 2022, we actually went to Atlanta to promote doing business in Ghana and Nigeria, and there was a lot of interest there from the market, whether it was African Americans, Ghanaians, Nigerians, or Caucasian people, all types of people that were interested in coming. I think one of the biggest things that people don't understand when they're coming is the complexities of our systems. We're not as straightforward and transparent with information like you would go to a lot of developed countries, let's say. And I think it's by virtue of just how we communicate. We're not really forthcoming with a lot of information. It's like, okay, you do this and then go and come. Then you did it. And it's very frustrating for a lot of companies. And the way a lot of people in the West, let's say, do business, they tend to do it, you can send an email and it's good enough. But in Ghana, we like to do the face-to-face. I want to see you, that thing. And that slows and frustrates a lot of people as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we personally face with businesses, let's say, coming from Nigeria, is the equity requirement. So with GIPC, so any company that comes into, foreign company that comes into Ghana, they have to register at the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. Okay. And if you're coming in as a foreigner, but you're doing a JV, a joint venture, okay. Sorry. You can do an investment of around amount of 100,000
JV
USD.
200,000.
Is it 200,000? Yeah. Yes. And then if you're coming in 100% owned, it's $500,000. But then if you're coming to trade, and this, I mean, for a lot of people who have heard of the issues of GUTAG, Ghana Union Traders, Ghana Union Traders Association closing up shops and things, it's because there are traders in the system, but the traders are supposed to be paying 1 million USD registration. And for your Nigerian who sees Ghana as their backyard or the extension of their country, it's like, what are you saying? 1 million USD is absolutely ridiculous. And how do we realize that? So they become some of the key challenges that we have. And then people tend to then just walk into the country, try to do business, and then later on, they'll get caught. You can do it for so long. You might be able to be under the radar for so long, but then, you know, GRA are being very more intentional about how they're doing things right now. RGD are being a bit more stringent about their systems, etc. So you come in and if you're not compliant, you're going to get caught eventually. And no one ever hears the backstory. You just hear the drama that comes with it without really appreciating the nuances that are part of it. So yeah, so there's a lot of varying factors coming into the market.
So apart from the GIPC, are there any other institutions that you are supposed to register?
So Registrar General's department, but then depending on what industry you're going to, will then determine which government organization that you should be registered with. And usually GIPC should be able to inform you of that, or maybe the Ministry of Trade will be able to do it. So there's different entities that should be able to advise you that, okay, this is where you go next. But being in Ghana for all this while doing business, there are still errors. Like, we still miss things, trust me. I'll give you an example. Our hospitality business has been running for 8 years. And it was just the start of this year that we learned that we have to be registered by FDA. And it just blew my mind. Like we've done all our registration with all of the entities that are there, and then we get this information that you're supposed to be registered with FDA. We've been operating for 8 years. We've been in a line of sight for 8 years. Why is it only now? And it can be a bit frustrating. And
so there's no one-stop institution can go to for all the information.
No, that's the problem.
No, I think Nadia wouldn't say it's much of a problem, but it is a daunting task.
Yeah.
The point is that there are several laws in Ghana, but until you take a step, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So what I actually mostly advise investors is that talk to the right person. There are a number of experts in the country that are willing to hold your hands and be your eyes on the ground. But mostly when investors come to the country, they tend to do things by themselves. So if you don't talk to the experts to know exactly what you are supposed to comply with, then you'll be found wanting. So you get to a point, just as Nadia said, I'm just there, and then we have to do FDA. FDA is such a #1 thing you have to do in the hospitality industry, because you are offering a lot of services that are linked to what they do. So they need to see you, they need to come inspect whether your kitchen, whatever you are doing and all that, to make sure that you are in compliance with the law. So it's much more about that. It's much more about that. So talk to the right person.
Is it possible to have a one-stop shop? Because Ministry of Trade and Industry should have maybe an office where you can work, because the whole idea is promoting Ghana and promoting investment. Someone can walk in and, okay, I want to go into hospitality business. Then, okay, these are all the institutions. These are what these are. Shouldn't that be something to look at?
Well, we can do that. We can do that. I think we will get there. But for now, we will get there. But for now, it's such that, like I said, when you're coming into Ghana, you want to make sure that you know what you want to do. So if you are an investor, you should know your line of activity. I've always told people, talk to the experts. There are people that are well-versed, consultants are there, the agencies are there, GIPC is there for you. There are lawyers, there are consultants here and there. So there are people you can actually talk to. But mostly, not for free, of course. Like we say, a lawyer's advice is their stock in trade, of course. So, I mean, you want to make sure that you talk to the right people. It might be expensive, but at the end of the day, you'll be compliant. So these days, you need to make sure you are doing that. But then as much as possible, just as Nadia, we also need to start streamlining some of these things. Put the law, there should be a place where you can go for data, know exactly where you need to, like one stop shops, and then you go there, and then you know that this is what I have to do here and there. But I believe if you go to the GIPC, you get all that. But some investors do not know. But then we will get there.
Okay, so now let's even discuss a little bit about GIPC. GIPC, if you're a foreigner and you want to start business again, you have to register. What's the process? What's the idea? So you're going to GIPC, you pay the necessary monies, you fill the forms, and
so they have an investor relations desk. So they basically walk with you hand in hand to ensure that you're being able to do the things that you need to do. And if there's any challenges that you're having in the process, they are able to intercede on your behalf. So if you're going to a particular agency, I've been going there, then somebody from that office, the idea is that somebody from that office can then call and say, hey, we've got a client who's so on and so forth. And then there's also their aftercare service. So even after you've registered your business and then you're up and running, they've also got something where you can keep on going back to them, letting them know any challenges that you're having, maybe with GRA, etc. So the idea is to give companies a soft landing into Ghana. But alongside with GIPC, I think it's really important for people to also be part of chambers of commerces and business councils, because then you're in a community. So then that also serves a function as well. It gives you updates of what's going on in the industry, in Ghana, politics, economy. Because when you're new to the environment, something could be happening, you're like, what's happening, what's going on? But when you're with your community, it helps you navigate the space much better. But I think you said something earlier, like people do like the idea of, I mean, Ghana, because we're an English-speaking country, people just think, oh, and you know, because it's Africa, oh, Ghana, it's so safe, let's just go. And you know, here, you know, someone said to me, oh, Ghanaians are so friendly. I was like, what does that mean? Like, I don't get it. But anyway, I digress. So, you know, when they come in, they think it's going to be easy, especially compared to Nigeria, because Nigeria is hardcore, you know, no messing around. But so when they come here, they have very low expectations of how tough it can be to do it. But there was one time, one of our clients, who was the CEO of the African Finance Corporation in Nigeria, he said that one time he advised his clients, because one of his clients wanted to come into Nigeria or they were in Ghana, and he said to them, you know, no matter where you want to go, Ghana or Nigeria, you're going to go through the same amount of wahala. But in the end, you'll have access to a 30 million market, or you have access to a 220 million market. So make your choice. And that's how tough Ghana is. That's how tough it is. And to be fair, and I have to say this, Nigeria are actually very far ahead with their business processes and streamlining and things. It's actually a bit more straightforward than it is in Ghana. Believe it or not.
Okay, so some of the legal rudiments, take us through some of them.
Yeah, so of course, if you're a foreigner and you want to start business in Ghana, you know
Or you're a Ghanaian and you want to team up with a foreigner.
Whether you're a Ghanaian, have Ghanaian-owned business, or you go to the RGD. That should be your first agency to go to. So you Registrar General's Department. So now we are saying Office of the Registrar of Companies. So it's now ORC. I mean, I think by the introduction of the new Companies Act, so now we say Office of the Registrar of Companies. So you go there and then you do your registration. But then they have now done things much more easier, such that you can go online, get your forms, get what you are supposed to do, and then all that you have to do is provide them with the information they need. Of course, you must get your TIN number, and there is that aspect of going to the GRA, Ghana Revenue Authority. So the tax aspect also come in, that you should register with them as well. Then depending on the type of business you are doing, GIPC comes in, if there is a foreigner involved, of course. So you want to immediately GIPC come in, you know that if there is a foreigner, you know the minimum capital requirements start kicking in. So if you are doing trading, you know that you are your minimum equity is 1 million USD, and you are actually going to pay 1% as stamp duty to the RGD. That is where it comes. I mean, what she was talking about. And so if you are doing services, you're going to go in with the minimum capital equity is 500,000 USD, and you also pay 1% as stamp duty to the RGD. If you are manufacturing, it's quite open. So for manufacturing, you can advise that somebody can come in with 50,000 USD. There is no restriction on manufacturing. Okay. But when it is trading, it is high. Joint venture, 200,000 USD. You pay that, and then you go through the processes and register. After that, you make sure you go to the GIPC. Of course, we are talking about foreign companies. You fill your forms as well, and you do write a letter that you want to register this company under the GIPC. And after they issue you with your license, you know that 2 years you have to renew your license.
Every 2 years?
Every 2 years you have to renew your license. And I mean, it is not cheap though.
Of course not.
So they also charge their own registration fee depending on what you want to do. So your activities should be clearly set out. You should know where you are going to because of the minimum capital requirement. So like to the GIPC, if you are doing like trading, you are paying like 31,500 Ghana cedis. And it follows like that. I think that is the highest. So you know what you want, you know what to do. And then, I mean, it doesn't end there. You are now coming to stay in Ghana. So your activities will also open you up to other agencies. So if you are in the hospitality agency, you are looking at EPA, FDA, Environmental Protection, I mean, Authority. You are looking at Food and Drug Authority. And I mean, these things are there. Like I said, so you are looking at,
so it could be LATMA,
I mean,
it could be,
of course, the local government, you have to pay taxes to here and there. And so it depends on where you are, what you are doing. There are things that you do that will take you to free zones. There are things that, so it doesn't end. It doesn't end. It is quite, there are several compliances you have to do. Several compliance. So unless you know exactly what you want to do and who you are talking to. If you are talking to an expert, they can help you. But sometimes, like Nadia said, it is a daunting task. So you get to the point and they are like, they come to you, you're supposed to do this. And you're like, no, I don't have it. So it all comes down to information. Do your market research. Talk to experts. Ghana is like, we have a lot of laws. And then you take it from there.
And can I just add, even so with the GIPC, the payments that you have to make, so the 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, it doesn't necessarily have to be cash.
Yeah, of
it
course.
could be in, you
in
know,
kind,
your material,
like
your
machinery.
material, exactly, and all of those things. So a lot of the time people think, hey, I have to bring
No,
1
no.
million. No. What is the total amount of your assets that you're bringing into the market, etc.? So, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, we've recently have a client who's in the fintech space. They're actually a Nigerian company, and they came in, they had an MOU with a company in Ghana, and then all of a sudden the Fintech Act kicked in.
Okay.
And the MOU that they just had was now null and void. And, you know, this company are rapidly expanding throughout Africa, and Ghana is a country they want to be in. And they're just like, what's going on? So then we had to do a deep dive to find out, and we were like, oh, it was the Act. When you signed the MOU, the Act hadn't even been, you know, thought about. But now it's been implemented, everything. They're just like, hey, Ghana, this small country, why is it worrying us like this? So then, you know, we now have to think, you know, and it's a lot of phone calls. Like you said, for me, I think it's more about who you know to really navigate this, to navigate the system.
I think it's business generally.
But you know, I always disagree with the who you know. Because you do not need to know the minister or see the minister to do business in Ghana.
Oh, sure.
Of course, I mean, in Africa, we've come to accept that term too much. Because
to be fair to them,
there's
some truth to it.
Because
you get to a point and everyone wants money, everyone wants something, a favor, everyone. And so just a phone call from just one person can shush a lot of people out.
No, so that generic statement.
It says, I know, but
in reality,
it's a term that is used, but I always take exception to it. Well, that's personally.
Yeah, why?
Because I feel you do not need to know the minister, the MP, or the president to do business. What you need to know is the expert. I mean, I keep going about, but then we have a culture of people, and there are certain traits of these things. So we've come to accept it somehow.
I wasn't referring to government.
Okay, sure. Exactly. But then we always, so not just even.
It's more of you have an issue.
So you should know the top man in there.
The person involved in that issue can help resolve it.
So may not even be the top man.
Someone in there.
You should know that.
I might call Adam. Okay. Adam, actually, do you know?
Adam is the expert.
But exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
It could be an expert. It could be a non-expert.
So let's not say who you know.
That's who you know.
That's an expert.
But she knows the expert.
She didn't know the expert. So the expert who you know is the good information ground you must also. Well, that's just by the way.
So let me now ask some of the bottlenecks, okay? Some of the bottlenecks in respect to foreign, if you're a foreign. Because when I'm talking about this, you'll be thinking about an outsider. No, it's possible you team up with a foreigner to start a business. So don't just be looking, and we should be thinking ahead, because we are just thinking inwardly, Ghana. No, start thinking about linking up with other businesses outside, linking up with other people to start businesses. So what are some of the bottlenecks?
Well, I mean, we've mentioned quite a few of them in terms of our systems and processes, but then you also have the issue of what happens in external markets as well. So you might even come in, sorry, I just like to even go a step back. I also want to address that. Some Ghanaians who are born in the UK or in other countries, they also need to understand, if they're holding a British passport, but their parents are Ghanaian, they still need to register here as a Ghanaian. Sure. Otherwise, they'll be seen as a foreigner. It's not enough to say, yeah, but my mum is, because as long as they don't have any Ghanaian identity, they're going to be treated as a foreigner. You
could have a dual citizenship.
Exactly. So they should take advantage of doing that to ensure that everything that they're doing now becomes a Ghanaian business. Right. So, but the issue is that if you're coming in and you're maybe you've partnered with a foreigner, for example, and that foreigner has invested a certain amount of money into your business, but then the market is going badly in whichever country that they're from, they might want to pull out all of their investment and then just leave, like pack up and leave very quickly. And then that can really mess you up, especially if you don't have anyone else to replace that with. So I think even right now with the fintech industry as well, a lot of the companies are being financed by companies in California, San Francisco, etc. But then they've gone through a crash. So therefore it means that a lot of the seed fundings that they've been trying to do has almost grinded to a halt. So I think something that we need to look at within Africa is how we can invest more into our own types of businesses, so that it removes that one bottleneck, like we're constantly relying on outside money in order to be able to thrive. So for me, that is one key bottleneck that I think needs to be addressed, or that what we should look out for.
Yeah, on my side, well, I can only talk about client experiences. Mostly, just as we are discussing, our compliances are quite stringent. The whole experience can be frustrating for even the experts. So just as we said, we do not have one body where you can go to for everything. So sometimes you are surprised at times. So the whole experience can be too daunting. So sometimes the investors are quite frustrated about it all. I mean, the taxes are a bit higher in Ghana as well. When you look at the sub-region, Nigeria, Senegal and other places, because mostly investors have gone around Africa. So it is not just Ghana they are coming to, and they are hit by very high taxes, and they are like, whoa, this is quite too much. And sometimes, our land acquisition is also tough. It's also tough, and I mean,
that's a strong
very
area.
tough. One area that can also frustrate you, I mean, because most of the lands are not registered. They are either owned by a stool or a family. So the government lands that are mostly registered are not many. Even them, not everything is registered. So sometimes you buy a land and you are surprised with one litigation here or the other. So investors, I mean, these are some of the things that they go through. So, I mean, that's what I can say.
Ghana is tough.
Yeah.
Ghana is tough. I remember somebody once said to me that if you can make it in Ghana, you can make it anywhere in this world, because you're literally walking through things blindly with a hope and a prayer that, when you wake up, somebody is not knocking on your door telling you that, hey, if you don't do this, we'll lock you up. And all of those kind of, and we're a bit aggressive as well when it.
Than Nigerians?
Nigerians, they talk how they talk, and it's not even an issue. But Ghanaians, we can be very intimidating, very, very intimidating, and it comes across like, you're trying to do a business, you're trying to thrive, you're trying to do something new, and the environment. So when you have all of these constant, and then there's inflation, and then it just becomes a bit overwhelming. So for someone who's looking at it, they'll look at all these different things that are happening. They'll say, is it really worth it? So sometimes you don't even see these foreigners staying in the market for that long, unless they're like a big global conglomerate, and that is their strategic move to have a footprint in the country. I remember a South African retailer was coming into Ghana, and we were doing their initial market strategy with them and everything. And they wanted to get, I guess another bottleneck is how expensive things are, right? Because they wanted to get a space to put their retail outlets in. And they were struggling with the space to car park ratio. So, you know, again, these are the things that we don't really think about when we're doing some of our buildings, right? So they're looking at grade A retail space, but it's not quite matching up to what happens in South Africa and stuff like that. So the gentleman was in Ghana for like a year. We did some market research and stuff. And then afterwards, he was just like, doesn't make sense. We're going to go to Nigeria. It just doesn't make Ghana's cost per square meter or square feet was just ridiculous. The car park space wasn't working. How much money were they going to really be bringing in? Like, everything just didn't seem interesting after a while. And they just lost their appetite. They left before they even started, you know? So, and then you have other situations where, you know, Walmart had bought Game, the South African retailer, and then within 2 or 3 years, they're just like, no, it's not making sense. They shut down the whole chain, so we don't have Game anymore.
You don't.
Yeah. So those are the things. So I think sometimes, you know, Ghana can be tolerated by Ghanaians, or other Africans, but sometimes foreigners, it's just like, oh no, it doesn't make sense. That's the challenge sometimes. But the beauty of all of it is that regardless of what makes sense or not, Ghana is always going to be relevant moving forward. Like, the world is moving to Africa. So we play a vital role.
If you don't play our cards well, it's going to...
No, it doesn't actually matter.
It doesn't matter. Because I want to go to Nigeria because in every job there's been anyway.
Yeah. The thing is, like I said, but then in terms of the characteristics of a Ghanaian and Nigerian, people can tolerate Ghanaians more, tend to. There's some people who can firm up a Nigerian and deal with them, but they tend to feel like they can tolerate Ghanaians a little bit more. And the pace of Ghanaians is a little bit slower. Like, if you meet a Nigerian and you're doing business, they've already thought from the beginning to the end of the business transaction. The Ghanaian is still thinking about the beginning and maybe the middle. So sometimes that suits people than somebody who's already thought the beginning and the end, their buyout strategy, what they're going to like.
But that's a good business. Right, so now let's look at, you have a foreign business, or you have a business in Ghana, and you're thinking about bringing foreigners in.
Okay.
That's a new area.
Yeah.
How do you go about it?
Okay, so, I mean, if you want to bring in non-Ghanaians to work in Ghana, you know, the Immigration Service Act is there, and you must comply. Law again. Law again, there I go. Yeah. Immigration is there, so you must comply. Real. So, you need to, you have your forms, you need to fill. That's the quota system. Yeah. So there is a whole quota committee. You have to notify, you send your business details, you send their passports, you fill your form and all that. So if they have dependents, you are bringing in marriage certificates, birth certificates for their children and all that, and then you file. So when they get it, the name of the company, what their position, what they are going to do is all put on the permits, work permits, residence permits, and then they can come in. Or, sometimes, you have about some time you can come into the country, but then it expires after some time. So they come in and then they go through the process. It takes about a month or so to do that. So I think immigration is quite straightforward.
Yeah. I think the only issue is the quota, like you said, because it's four.
Yeah, so it depends. Yeah. It depends on, so for I think the restriction, the quota from that GIPC gives you is restricted to your minimum equity. Sure. But then you can apply for more at the immigration services. Okay. So GIPC can give you the quota. Let's say if you are a trading company, they look at the amount and then they give you the quota. Yeah. But then you can also apply at the immigration service and then get the work permits or the residence permits for your foreigners as well. Okay.
Yeah. So now we have about 10 minutes approximately to go.
Oh.
So I know, right? So when I told you 1 hour, you said what? So that viewers, I have some few questions. Cecilia asked a question. She said, most foreign companies just want to survive instead of thinking of growth. What accounts for this, and what can be done about it? Foreign business think of survival instead of growth. Nadia, I think I want you to answer that question.
I don't know if they necessarily think of survival over growth. I think when they get in, they realize they've got to survive. They'll think about growth later. And you know, I was having a conversation with somebody just this weekend, and he was like, Nadia, you know, in Ghana, it's like when the pendulum swings, it swings far. Like if it's great, if things are great, things are great. But when things are bad, like it's critical. So getting that balance and knowing when to stop, start, move, go this way, go that way. So initially it is about survival, because you know you keep on pumping in so much money, because you know we've spoken about the business registration elements of it, but then the operation of the business now becomes a whole new kettle of fish, you know. And so yes, they underestimate the value of what they're coming to do in Ghana. They might think, oh, £100,000, that's a lot of money. In Ghana will eat up that £100,000 so quickly.
You don't even see it. You wouldn't even see it. Stomach that just eat it.
And then, you know, the rent, you know, rent is so expensive, especially if it's in certain prime areas and things. So yeah, initially it's about what might seem like survival is maybe proof of concept stage. Is this really going to work? And then once they've been able to see that it can work, then they can now start looking at how we're going to scale the business. And some people don't really get to see that, because you don't look at scaling the business until 4 or 5 years into the business.
Mesewa, do you want something to it?
I think, well, Nadia has said most of it, but then there's been a lot of, you know, classic success stories for foreign businesses in Ghana. Melcom is doing great. Palace is doing, I saw Melcom is doing great. Palace is doing wonderful. A lot of them are doing very well. So I think, just as she said, I mean, initially, I mean, you want to stabilize a bit, but then there is more room for growth. And then companies have been to Ghana and they are growing. And there are a lot of Ghanaian companies that are also thriving. So, I mean, globally, things are hard, but then companies are doing well as well. So I think it's much more the earlier stages you want to survive, but then there is so much room for growth, because there are a lot of success stories out there.
And I think people just need to also be mindful that business growth doesn't happen immediately. Like Melcom didn't get to do what they're doing today just in 2 years, 5 years. It took decades for them, like they're actually moving into their 3rd generation now of their family that are managing Melcom. So these things, they take time and constant reinvestment back into the business. All
right. So Eben, what are some of the practical challenges you're facing as a foreign business investor? I think we've discussed that. How are you? What can you do to maneuver these hurdles? I think we've discussed that as well. And Kwame Amwako is saying setting up business is quite a daunting task due to the micro agencies attached to the main body. This sometimes increases the fees or amount that needs to be paid before the business starts to take off. Ghana needs to restructure the system in order to allow more investment based on the right process and the government agencies require. That's what we're talking about. So many, and everyone will take their pound of flesh.
Can I actually say something to be fair to Ghana? And I say this to everybody. I feel like Ghana is growing much faster than our systems can cope with. I don't think we're not on par with one another. And what you're seeing quite a lot of is that, you know, we're trying to move into this digital world in doing everything. because they're realizing that's what's going to provide them with the ease of doing and transparency as well. So I think to be fair to my country, we are trying.
We are trying.
I don't like that.
So now we are gathering all our data. Now we are going digital. So very soon we'll get every data at one place. And
I sort of believe that someone has gone before you.
Okay.
So when you are taking that same road, you shouldn't be falling or having the same issues those people had. We are just starting, and we see other countries go through the same hurdles. We are also going through the same thing. Anyway,
but there's also capacity, like human resource capacity as well. I feel like everything is interconnected, right? So if Ghana is growing at an exponential speed, but then maybe government staff are not quite up to par with a lot of the nuances and the new movements and things like that, it also affects how things are being done. So I think everything is, we have to have a wave. So in the meantime,
all I'm saying is that there's hope, and you can do business in Ghana and survive.
Yes,
we are. You can bring in those foreign investors.
Yes,
team
you
up
can.
with them.
We've given you several examples that
really
businesses are thriving in Ghana. So I mean, like we said, globally there is hardship, but then businesses are doing so well. Even Ghanaian businesses are doing well. Look at Alisa Hotel doing so well. Doing so well. I mean, Melcom,
just that their jollof is no more than nice, but
they are doing so well. Our hospitality, industry doing so well, and all that. So I mean, we are growing. We will get there. So I mean, just as our traffic laws came and everyone is on the alert, let's just make things a bit clearer, such that it will spell out what to do and what not to do, and then people can comply, and it will be easy for them.
So Kakra is asking this question. I think I wrote it down here. She said, hey, is it worth starting a business in Ghana as a foreigner? Why or why not? Kakra, hey.
I think we've answered that question.
I don't think it's okay. Still,
we've answered that. It is worth it.
Okay, so I have something to say about that. So I read an article last year, and it was written by The Guardian. It was featured in The Guardian newspaper, which is a British, middle class newspaper. And the article was regarding megapolises, right? And a megapolises is an area where it's got a lot of density, activity, and like human population as well as business. And they said that currently New York is actually the megapolises of the world. But it stated that by 2050, from Abidjan to Lagos is going to be the new megapolises, right? This is a Western media that is basically saying, this is where everybody's going to be. This is where the density, this is where you're going to see the most traffic, the most activity between Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria. So that tells you why you should come to Ghana. The second thing is that...
How could you go in Ghana? French and English. They should do Ghana and go to Ghana.
The other element is that I'm sure everybody knows about the road, the motorway that's going to be running from Abidjan to Lagos as well. And for those who don't know, that road is going to be 1,200 kilometers. 550 kilometers of that road is in Ghana. So we have, that's what I'm saying, like it doesn't matter what things look like now. It doesn't matter how hard things are. It's about maybe putting a seed and seeing it grow for the long term. So you can benefit from it now. Your children can benefit, and your children's children.
And that's another thing. With the Ghanaian businesses, don't you see the children, the third, fourth generation?
Because mostly we do not involve the younger generation in it. So there were lots of good businesses, schools especially, that went down when the sole proprietor died. So I mean, that if you do not involve the family in it, so I'm
thinking that if you involve the families where the children, why don't you rather bring in experts?
So you can bring in experts. You can bring in experts, but then there should be. We are talking about generational. So there should also be somebody, not so straightly, in the family.
Shares. So the family
also, I mean, as much as you giving shares, I mean, sometimes there are. When you give the chance for your children to be involved, they also make sure that it thrives. So this is much more about small businesses. but then you open up for investors to come in when it is a bigger business. If it's a limited liability, then you can float shares for others to come in.
I think part of the reason as well is because for a lot of people, when they do well in their business, they send their children outside.
Yeah.
And then the children start thinking, okay, I'm going
not
to
coming
stay.
back.
Yeah. I've heard of I've seen a lot of scenarios, whether it's family property, whether it's businesses, they just cash out. And it's real money for them. It's like, hey, $250,000, $1 million, oh my gosh. Like, that's free money to them. But I'm also seeing, in this whole diaspora movement or Ghanaians who were born abroad and then they're coming back, I'm also seeing a lot of them picking up their parents' businesses now because they're seeing that as a foot in the market. Like, okay, well, Dad has been doing this business for a while. It's been making sense. I can see how I can renovate or upgrade this business. So you're seeing it small. It's also, but that's more, in my opinion, in the diaspora market coming in. But locally, I don't think it's like, oh, you do what you do, I'll do what I do. You know,
Yeah.
that's not my interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's wrap up. Your final words to that Ghanaian investor or to that foreign investor who wants to really do well in our space.
Well, I would say that setting up a business is a big task. So before you do that, make sure you've done your research. You just don't come in like a bang and then you start doing
go out in a bang.
But you make sure you've done your market research, talk to the experts. There are a lot of experts in Ghana that are willing to hold your hands and take you to where you need to be to. There are a lot of experts in Ghana that will be your eyes on the ground to make sure that you are compliant with the laws of Ghana. So do these things and then come in, know exactly what you are doing, your activities, such that you know the amount of money that is involved in the business. Because of course, if it's a joint venture of wholly foreign, then you know exactly what you are doing. If you are doing trading, if you are doing manufacturing, if you are doing services, you know the capital requirements, so you know what to do. So I think when you do all this, you'll be fine. I think we have a stable political climate for businesses to thrive.
At least that's one thing that goes for us.
Yeah, we do.
We do. Nadia?
I'm going to be so controversial.
I like controversy.
Nadia, you have to pardon your country.
I'm going to
or you should end on a good note.
End on a good note.
No, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And actually, this is a message for Ghanaians who are seeing all the changes in the environment, and some things just don't make sense.
Okay.
In Ghana, there's a lot of money laundering that takes place. There's a lot of drugs that pass through our country. So it's not everything that you see that you see it as this is a foreigner coming to invest money, and why is everybody's business doing so well? How come they? And I'm saying this because I've also got my ear on the ground with our people, and I can see they're on Instagram, you know, they're doing, and they're like, why is my business not thriving like this person's business? So I want to also put that out there that it's real. It happens in our country. It's very real. People, I mean, Greta just recently published an article, it was front page of BNFT last week, which said that the real estate industry and money laundering is becoming a bit overwhelming. And for anyone who understands what's going on in our economy right now, it's a harsh contrast to see ultra modern.
That side is booming. Real estate is booming.
People are struggling. It's a harsh contrast.
That's a good point.
Yes, so I'm being controversial, but I'm being very real. So I just want people to understand, not everything you see makes sense, right? But then, and that's even for international people coming in. So they'll see these apartments that are going for 300,000. Also, a Ghanaian consumer, an average Ghanaian cannot pay that.
You can't. But sometimes you see them and they are so empty. You're like, what is going on? Why they don't want to sell? It's too expensive. I mean,
so
we get
I just
that.
want to give that reality, even for a foreigner that's coming into the market and they'll see Ghana looking a certain way. It is not what it seems. You have to give yourself time to figure Ghana out. Like going to the markets, like if you know Africa, you know our markets are the real money hub. That's where business is really like booming. And knowing that Mokala, for example, is one of the biggest revenue markets in the whole of West Africa. And so looking at, never underestimating the informal sector. and seeing how you can either produce services and stuff that will help the informal sector to continue to thrive, or knowing that when you're coming into the formal sector, you're playing a long game, and it may not, you will have to grow with the industry. You might have to grow with the country as well. So we just need to be looking a bit long term. Nothing is going to happen immediately.
Yeah.
What's it be real? What's it be real? And my final word is always what? I hope you've learned something, anything. All right. You are a business. You want to team up with a foreign business. It's possible. Yes, there are hurdles, but hey, others are doing it. And as Nadia said, all that glitters is no gold, right? Just take your time and go at your own pace. And who knows? God will come through for you. They
should talk to the experts.
Yes, please talk to the experts. I was about to ask Versa, well, how much she charges, because talk to the experts. It's not for free. So don't worry, you can call me. I'll link you up with Nadia or Sewa, and then they can sort you out. So next week is season 3, episode 9. As I said, we'll end with episode 10. So next week we'll be doing business in Ghana, wrapping up in insolvency matters. So what do you tell Buboma? You've done all you can. It's not working. Now you have to wrap up. You are going insolvent. There's no money. The business is going under. How can you really go under that you save a bit of money for yourself, that you save, in quote, your face, that you don't go crashing down, that you crash or you land well? Next week you're going to go through all that. So please, as I always say, take care. Be nice. It's nice to be nice. And hey, God will, that's all. Amen?
Amen.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.